The dim pre-dawn light filled the room as Tommy woke up. Rubbing the sleep from his eyes, they opened as the boy's active imagination took flight. When he saw something move out of the corner of his eye, he froze and slowly swiveled to face the dark, shadowy corner of the bedroom. Over the sound of his parents' steady breathing, Tommy could hear a third set of lungs, inhaling and exhaling. Not moving a muscle, Tommy watched the dark corner. To his horror, the shadows were no longer static. Before the child's eyes, out of the darkness, something emerged. Hearing their son screaming, Tommy's parents awoke with a shock and followed their son's terrified gaze, but they could see nothing at all. Eventually, they tried to convince him to go back to sleep, talking soothingly about nightmares. The horrifying truth hit Tommy in that moment. Neither of his parents could see the monster, which meant they couldn't save him from it. Terrified, he burrowed beneath the blankets, but he could still feel the creature nearby, breathing heavily, watching him. That feeling was something Tommy soon came to dread. Whenever he glanced over his shoulder, with a thrill of horror, he would realize that the monster was there, always lurking. His parents were of no help at all. No matter how much Tommy cried and wailed in fear, the monster remained invisible to his parents, and soon they stopped taking their son seriously. The worst part was that the monster was always there to make any situation worse. He seemed to always force Tommy into doing exactly the things he feared the most. And stuck between facing his fear and facing the monster's wrath, Tommy nearly always gave in to the monster's wishes. Gradually, however, Tommy realized that for most part, good things came of what the monster forced him to do. And with every fear he faced, the little boy began to gain more and more confidence in himself. And as he grew ever more sure of himself, the monster seemed to become less and less scary. Until finally there came a time when Tommy trusted the monster completely. His fear of the creature had evaporated, to be replaced with a sense of trust in his constant companion. Now, wherever he went, Tommy no longer looked over his shoulder in fear. Rather, he looked over his shoulder to reassure himself that his friend was with him. When his mother abruptly stopped walking one day as the two were returning home, Tommy peered upwards cautiously and saw an unfamiliar woman smiling down at him. Tommy immediately darted around his mother and hid behind her legs. Staring through the gap between her legs, Tommy realized that there was a child with the woman, a little girl about his age. All of a sudden, Tommy felt something tugging on his shorts, and he glanced down. It was obvious that the monster wanted him to go and speak to the girl. Finally, Tommy was convinced to venture out from behind his mother and approach the little girl. Slowly, he held out his hand, like he had seen grown-ups do when they greeted somebody. Filled with confidence, Tommy began talking to the girl, and within minutes, the two were jabbering away at each other. The monster stood at a distance, watching as Tommy made his first real friend. And as the bond between the two children grew, the monster began to fade, until finally, where it had previously stood, there stretched only the empty street, and the monster became nothing more than a memory.